Good evening, everyone. Welcome to one of the hypest sets so far this season, possibly the most hyped set of all time, at least before we reach the postseason. We have for you today Kings Dukes versus Phenoms. And I'm joined here today by Justin and Skeet whenever he gets back. So, Justin,
Uh,
how do you feel?
I'm feeling pretty good. I hope we can live up to casting wise to the greatest set ever played coming here in a couple of minutes. But I am really excited as you are to see these two teams played. Most people determine these as the top two teams in the majors divisions, really the front runners in terms of who can win playoffs. And this game and this match really sets the tone right now. The number one and number two seeds of who will get that and who can get choice and all that stuff. So a lot of things on the line in this set in particular.
That is absolutely true. I mean, Phenoms dropped one game to the Pittsburgh Phantoms, and the Dukes did not drop any games. So this has a lot of importance, especially for Phenoms,
They dropped one game
because
actually to the Reapers. To the Reapers.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you
that
off.
yeah, that too, that too.
So I think it's one actually. Each of them dropping one game.
Yeah, so this puts Phenoms back into contention for that number one spot, and this will put Dukes with a firm win here, even a 2-1, to be the drivers for the remainder of this season as we reach week 6 here. This is a rescheduled set from previous in the year, though.
Exciting, exciting. As we see some picks and bans coming out, I see an Osiris and a Fafnir coming out on the King's Duke side, with a Gilgamesh and an Odin coming out on the Phenom side. What do you think about these picks and bans so far as we see the Morgan, Le Fay, and the Tiamat getting banned as well?
I see a lot of chalk here. I mean, Osiris is so good right now.
Hmm.
He's just able to destroy teams. Odin, the same. Gilgamesh just kind of runs team fights. Fafnir is the top support that you see being picked. Tiamat is broken, and Morgan Le Fay just has so much that it's just better to not have to deal with her. But
Yep.
we do see these top picks come in as we talk about those bands, and Artemis plus Sobek here. Um, Artemis really coming in to shine with the bow builds.
Hmm.
Just because her stim is insane. You're hitting so much, especially with Icky of all procs. It just becomes kind of nuts.
100%. And with that going to Clay City, one of the more dominating hunters in this league, Wolf's going to have a tough time coming up against this Artemis just because how dominant she is so far right now in the meta with the Ichorwall procs, with how safe she is with her traps, how many she gets, how often she can get them up, and then also with her slow immunity on her too. She can just really zoom up and down lanes. She has a lot of ways to CC people and a lot of ways to try to peel self peel, but with a Sobek on the other side, maybe put a little bit of pressure onto this Artemis. She doesn't have any natural movement, just movement speed enhancement, but that Sobek could put a little pressure on her in this early game. But also the Hell coming through. You reckon this Hell's going to be in the mid lane coming out of Vistix, or do you think that's going to go towards Buggy Dude?
I mean, we've been seeing a lot of Hell played in the
Tremble
solo lane
beneath the
lately,
waves.
and I think that trend is going to continue. That's just how it seems to be these days. Just
Your time
she
has
she
come.
apparently can have a lot of survivability, and if you're able to get past a sort of rough early game, you're healing your team. You're being a great backliner, but you also have a lot of damage and a lot of ways to help your team out with cleanses and stuff like that. So she has a lot, and I don't think in the mid lane she is the best choice,
Yeah,
but it's not that she can't be played there for sure. But
definitely.
I definitely think I'd prefer her in the solo lane
I
over.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. I think just her weaknesses, she's a bit safer in the duo
I
in the
will
I'm sorry, in the
with
solo
this
lane,
my
gets that blue
force.
buff, keeps her topped off on mana, gets a lot of pressure, and then especially with how the Phenoms like to play, they really do like to play through Buggy in that side lane. You see Omar and Brown side over there constantly on those blue side invades. But as we see a Morgan and your Moja out on the other side, a strong two picks. I really loved this Umoja pick. You don't get to see her that often just because I know you said previously Fafnir is the top support, but I think Umoja holds that one pretty steady. But maybe they'd much rather play against play against a Umoja than Fafnir. But they pick it up on their own side, and I really think that's a very strong character, especially into this hell. They're going to need a spectral and into the Sobek as well. And if that spectral's down, that's two priority targets that they can get trapped, and that Hachiman can be trapped as well. So really a really strong pickup over for this King's Duke side.
Yeah, of course, Umoja does have a significant amount of things in her. She traps down people pretty well, sort of like how Odin does right now.
Mhm.
She has that heal, so both sides have heal. So what you're going to be seeing is a lot of anti-heal as well,
A
coming
lot
out
of
in the
sustain.
builds. Mm-hmm.
And then also interesting that I noted earlier with the Artemis not having any traditional movement, that Yamoja kind of negates it a little bit, especially with that three, gives her a little bit of extra, a little bit of a leap to get out and a bit more extra movement speed to try to get out of sticky situations if
This
she
is one
finds herself
tail
in
you
those.
don't want to chase, darling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when it comes to some of the other lock-ins here, as we move on, Hachiman is very, very interesting pick for sure. His
Mhm.
attack stem has a lot of potential. And the Cirquet, which has seen a very big resurgence in the jungle for sure. So we might be seeing that coming out as a couple gods get hovered on the other side. We have a Nike and a Cthulhu. So I imagine, given what we have so far, that would be who going where? Nike
Yeah,
jungle,
Nike
Cthulhu
jungle.
solo, the
I
Morrigan
love this
mid.
comp.
Yep, that's
I
that's a
love this
great
comp.
comp.
This
Now
comp is
is the
so
time.
tanky. You can have double Nike, double Cthulhu, even double Yamoja. That double Tusky's not bad either. I think more often than not, we'll see that double Cthulhu coming out and just having that double Cthulhu in the team fight. And that team fight is absolutely nuts. Once that Morgan transforms into the Cthulhu, who do you try to kill? And if it's the Artemis, she's got traps, she's got the boar, she's got Yamoja healing her, she's got double Cthulhu dunking damage down on top of the team fight.
Supernova!
It's going to be really hard to kill anybody on that team. And you can maybe say we can might pick out Drew's food if we can hit our Sundos on him, take that shield away, make him super weak. But under the midst of all that damage, those 3, 4 people that you need to sunder in these team fights, and I think it might be smart of the Phenoms to probably pick up Sunder on 2 of their players.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of tank right there, as you were
Yeah.
mentioning. And on the other side, you got a couple interesting pickups as well. That Soul is going to be in the mid lane, and as we discussed, Buggy Dude will be picking up the Hell into solo lane, and Omar on that 6 Circuit, as we've seen him time and time again. Uh, but when it comes down to it, the comps, we talked about the tanky comp, we talked about how the other comp has, if they can get past the laning phase, there's a lot of sustain there for sure. Which
Yeah.
one do you like better?
It really just comes down to execution, and really, in terms of execution, I think it's up to these two solo laners, and I think this is going to be a very good matchup between Buggy Dude and Sandman. I think a lot of people in their eyes see these as the number one and number two in terms of the solo lane players, and it comes down to execution. Can Buggy Dude stay alive with all this dive and tank, and can he keep his a team up to sustain and out sustain this Yamoja in fights? And I think really, if they can do that, the Phenoms can and outlast these two Cthulhu ults or even bait a Cthulhu ult or a transformation out of this Morrigan. I think Phenoms have a fairly strong comp into this, but really I just don't see them having enough damage to kill anybody if they are taking a fight into the King's Duke straight up and they have all their stuff, all their buttons up. So I think it's going to be really tough for Phenoms come these late game fights. But with this team fight comp comes more mobility on the side of Phenoms, so I think they could really look to maybe single individuals out, pick them off before fights start, and then try to take a 4v5.
There's definitely a lot to say about these comps, but I will silence myself as the big man himself, Skeet, will jump in here. So I take it up to you two boys. Take it away.
Welcome,
Oh,
Ski. Welcome to the cast. And no, you're here now, and I believe your team is the Phenoms, correct? Or is it the King's
yeah.
Duke?
No, that's we're
Phenoms?
phenoms. Yeah.
Phenoms, awesome. So, what do you, I was wanting to get a little bit of your thoughts in terms of these two drafts or comps, or if anything you want to follow up based off what I said. But how are you feeling going into this game?
I didn't catch the beginning of yours, but I did catch the back end. Not thinking there's going to be enough damage. I'm pretty sure they're playing for picks, playing for objectives. That's kind of the mainstay of this this comp here. You know, getting picks. You know, with the shadow so effective, blow up damage to in order to kill objectives. Get that, get in and get out. Maybe not as much secure as we would have liked, but feels we have to sustain enough, pick and poke potential to really kind of turn fights upside down before they even really happen.
Yes, most definitely. I really do like the comps coming out of both teams here. It's really mostly down to execution. As we get into these early laning stage, we see a little bit of extra pressure coming out of the Emoja, but that's really no surprise just because of how much clear she can bring by herself. As we see mid laners and junglers trading out mid camps.
Yeah, Umoja does Umoja things, spams Omi, clears wave. It's that simple. Looking like an
Yep.
early gank coming out of Omar here.
Yeah, Omar's coming off the backside. The pluck does hit onto that Emoja, blinking in as Omar looking for the kill here. The Emoja does find a decent stun, but she should fall here to Omar with first blood out onto Gia. Just a great rotation, a great shot call. Big pluck coming out of brown side as he tends to do, and the Phenoms come out with an early pick. We see both teams starting to just go back into their farming stages, and the Phenoms picking up a pretty solid first blood there, getting a nice little gold bounty onto Omo. What do you think? How will that affect the game going forward? Well, especially with Drew's Food out on this Nike jungle, you'd like to see her maybe get out on a little bit of a lead just because she is a warrior. She's not quite as mobile. She wants to be in fights and pretty big fights. She doesn't have as much single target damage as you would want on your jungler. So, how do you think that early first blood for Omar will really help this Phenom roster get out to a running start?
I'm gonna be totally honest. I missed it, but I just think it's really gonna dude. My internet cut out for 2 seconds. I heard the blink of it, but no, I really think it's gonna lead to a nice little lead for Omar. Especially against a Nike early game. Nike kind of supposed to stomp that kind of early to middle game. That's kind of where she's gonna shine, and then she's kind of just a full setup bot late game. To be completely honest with you, there. Not really able to put out as much damage or as much CC without getting blown out late. I think that's a huge play for getting him ahead of that Nike early game. Stay ahead of her the whole game. I think that's gonna put the late game.
I think it sets a. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
No, you're good.
I do think it sets a really good tone for this Phenoms team, especially as you see Archie goes down and still holding the beads. Not really sure if the communication was all there with Omar being missing out of mid lane. Probably not thinking he was in as much danger as he was, and he ends up paying the price as we see a transformation coming out of the Morgan, turning into that Circuit, looking for the solo kill, but ends up getting caught in the tower, and Vizstick takes that 1v1, but now it's Food here in the mid lane, looking for the return onto Vizstick's 1, 2, 3, not quite enough. Vizstick's healing too much for Drew's Food, and that will be the end of that engagement. A clean pick by Vizstick's onto Vakis. Vakis being a little bit too aggressive in this mid lane.
Yeah, I think that was a huge play out of Viz there. Able to, just sustain just enough and heal up just enough. I think he was able to bring the damage to even out that trade. Crazy mid lane there. I think there's going to be a lot more farm towards Viz. He's already got a solid 1 level lead, maybe 1 in turns. Hey, it's probably a half to 1 level. I don't think it's a full level just yet. I can translate into a lot of pressure and more levels to come from that. That little defense there, that early aggression.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, especially with that Morgan ult being such a long cooldown. Getting that cooldown for free and actually returning a kill on to the Morgan, and it just feels really bad as the Morgan player that you aren't able to find that kill, and you actually give a kill to your opposing mid laner, and Soul, she can have a lot of pressure in that lane. And now with both the jungle and the mid laner having a kill, being a little bit ahead of their lane opponents, they can look to maybe start to pressure into this King's Duke's jungle.
A lot of pressure already around this gold series. It's just coming up right now. You think we're going to see an early gold this game, or do you think it's going to kind of be a dance?
Well, with how good both of these teams are, it's definitely most likely going to be a dance. I don't think anyone's going to find a quick, sneaky gold fury. Both the Kings Dukes and the Phenoms do a great job of warding, as we see a couple early wards coming out of the Kings Dukes onto that Greater Scorpion. But important to note that Greater Scorpion has to go down. I would like to see one of the teams set the pace and maybe take either that Fire Giant Greater Scorpion or that Gold Fury Greater Scorpion. But one of those needs to come down to really start to see these two teams start to try to square off. It is important to note Sandman is noted, is one of those more notable players to find those early rotations, so he could maybe look to swing out an early rotation out of that solo lane and find that pressure the Kings Dukes have been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that way too, because I mean, especially if he rotates, they can, already combine that double Cthulhu. I think it's just gonna be crazy until kin sides are online and maybe a telekines for the soul. I really think double Cthulhu.
Lincoln coming out of Quexen as we see ultimate out of that Socket as Archie throws up the Riptide. And the Emoja is coming down with that ultimate onto just the Sobek alone, and that engagement looks like it will be ended with the beads coming off of Bacchus there. A decent pick, trading ult for ult. G's ult for Omar's ult, and Omar already having that Jotun's Wrath up. That ultimate should be coming up fairly quickly, so maybe they can look on to a play on Bacchus, knowing that his beads are down within the next 90 seconds.
Yeah, I really like that Mannequin's pickup on the Circuit too. Kind of just noticing it now. That late game hidden blade with that poke, that that slow, that easy damage, the percentage health as well off of ulting Cthulhu. That 10% of that HP bar is just so much when you're talking about how much health Cthulhu is gonna have. And I think it's just huge. All you got to do is chuck one ability, and man, that's a lot of damage.
And I will like to mention, me and Jared was talking about in these picks and bans, as we see actually a little bit of pressure coming out of the Phenoms. They all rotating onto this purple buff, just G and Clay City here to defend, but it looks like it will go down to for free in terms of favor of the Phenoms, as Drew Food is hovering on the outside, but it looks like the Phenoms will disengage cleanly here. And the Phenoms doing a great job at using this pressure that they've had. They've reflected about a 1.5k gold lead and has found a little bit of good pressure coming out of this duo lane. But going back to my original point, but as we see a little bit of poke coming out, but back to my original point, me and Jay were talking about how important it is for this Phenoms roster to get some anti-heal online, and we see the Sunder coming out of the Sobek. I know Sobeks like to go blink, but probably might need a Curse Donk just because of this Umoja, and then Cthulhu also has healing on that 3, and with two Cthulhu's being thought about in these team fights healing on top of the Umoja heals, Soul's not really known for picking up anti-heal early, especially because I know Viz likes to go into that double life still. Hell could probably pick it up. I know they have a little bit of anti-heal with that Circuit ultimate, but it's only going on to one target. So who is the more likely player on this Phenoms roster to really pick up that anti-heal?
When I'm thinking about it, I think there's already the Circuit, the built-in anti-heal. Hell is probably maybe a Divine Ruin out of her, and then maybe like a Poison Blade on the bottom. Other than that, I think there's already a lot of built-in anti-heal in that team. I believe Sobek's 3. Right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so I mean, Sobek 3, you got Circuit. I think there's a lot of already built-in anti-heal, and maybe a Pestilence out of the Sobek. I don't see Hell building, completely honest. So
Yeah,
that would be my guess. Either a Pestilence or a forget the name of the physical one. I really I don't know why.
yeah.
Already a lot of anti-heal inside of the King Duke solo lane. You got a tainted heal already up.
Probably a Divine Ruin coming out of that Morgan as well. As we see Tusky coming out, hitting Omar with Art G on the backside of this rotation. Members of the Dukes are rotating in as a decent ultimate coming out of this Moja, but Omar blinking out, leaves ground side by himself, taking a lot of damage, getting picked off by Clay City with the Vargas is here with the Cthulhu transformation, but he is a bit low. So Cat does get on top of him, and he will die, spreading the poison throughout the team fight. But here's Sandman Samuel coming out with that early rotation, also into the Cthulhu. But it looks like there won't be any more going on to this fight, as the Kings Duke successfully defend their purple buff and find their first kill on the map for themselves.
I still think that is a win for Phenoms in that fight. Hell gets a lot of pressure solo. They didn't really gain a lot of that. They lost their mid laner for, Phenoms support. I don't think that's a win, and they're gonna pick up Place City on the backside as well. And they wound his beat. Yeah, they got his beat as well, so that's gonna be a huge target for Shuket. Hope comes back online as soon as he gets back to lane. That's just that fight is a huge win for Phenoms. And
A huge one, especially off
did
that
they?
backside. But
Yeah,
they
did they
did pick up
defend?
Vargas in the fight.
Yeah, did they win the purple buff? I don't know if they
Yes, they
successfully
did they
defended
did
it.
successfully defend their purple buff, but they gave up Vargas and then Clay City coming off that backside, also dying, especially a
And
pretty big
Boogie
win for
didn't
the
rotate.
Phenoms.
And Boogie didn't rotate. I think that's a huge win for them in that fight. A
Yes,
lot of
definitely.
resources used, a lot of ults, coming out. I mean, Mojo ult, Morgan ult, and Cthulhu will all use there in that fight.
Yeah, definitely. And now Phenoms finding themselves with a 2K gold lead, just a little bit less than that, but they're starting to close in onto that 2K gold lead. That Gold Fury has now spawned here. We're coming around the 12-minute mark. That anti-heal has been being picked up by the King's Duke. Sandman Samuel already finding an early rotation off of that purple buff being invaded. I know both teams probably looking towards that Gold Fury being the next really big team fight to break out here.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this next team, I think it's really going to come down to when it happens. I feel like if the Gold Fury is forced out here by the Phenoms, I think it needs to happen sooner rather than later with that beat trap. Advantage of that. A little bit of focus going on. Looks like
Dudes actually feel the vibe.
I don't think it's
They do Mojo off that, as we see Druid's Fruit is on the backside onto Viz6. The Dukes do successfully claim that Gold Fury, as we see Avakis does turn into that Saket, ultimates Viz and throws him out of the fight. Avakis does get his beats forced there too. Sandman Samuel is here into that Cthulhu transformation, as we see the Phenoms re-engage. Vakis does end up falling here, the first to die into this fight, as we see now the members of Phenoms turning onto Sandman Samuel. But he is fairly tanky, should be able to get out of here successfully. Overall, I think a win for the Kings Dukes, as they were able to find their buffs. I know that red is spawning, so Omar might claim this. If this mid tower goes down, I would consider it an even in terms of farm and trade, but definitely a win for the Phenom in terms of map pressure. As we see this red buff being turned on as well.
I definitely think that started out as a win. Unable to disengage really was the reason that I feel like with a little better disengage,
That's another T1 tower.
Taking 2 T1s, a red buff, Gold Fury, and they picked up, I believe,
Picked up a kill onto
trade.
Vakis.
Yeah, 1-0 trade on that as well. I don't, just these small victories. None of these fights are like completely one-sided. It just keeps victory leaning in the side of Phenoms. As you see that gold lead slightly growing up towards 3K right about now. That's huge. I think Justin just lagged out.
Oh my god.
Well, also in favor of Phenom, or 5K. Sorry, it was up there.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
there you go. You're back. It's okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
think your internet did the same thing mine did. Dude, I think it's Discord. My Discord should be better.
Yeah, I apologize about that, but it looks like we're back. The Phenom now enjoying themselves about a 5K gold lead after that Pyromancer. Actually, it's about a 4K gold lead. I'm a bit wrong. Oh, it's 6K? Oh, No, 4K. Yeah, it's 4K. It's about a 6K experience lead. Well, 5K experience lead in
Can I not
terms of
count?
favor
What
of the
was I
Duke.
looking at, dude? I was looking at the 7 on the other side. 7 to 51. That's my. I was like, dude, I swear that's 7 minus 1. The ult coming out for Sandman here, but first up, that's a lot of ult burn for one Cthulhu with no kills.
We do see RG on the backside, but he needs to be careful with that T2 falling here shortly. Yeah, King's Duke's just forcing, well, not King's Duke's, but I'm sorry, the Phenoms just forcing that one down, manhandling, as we see Clay is still on that left-hand side. We might see them turn their attention to the Fire Giant as his hell pulls it. And that Cthulhu and Morgan did just back. Morgan and Cthulhu both don't have their ulti, but we do see RG rotating in. Does have his ult available to him, but getting plugged into the team fight, forced to throw his ultimate onto the Fire Giant, but it's only about half HP as Phenoms do end up leashing it, but Armor Wolf falls down, the main source of damage on the backside to Drew's food, as Brownside is able to pick up RG on the tail end of that fight, but now a couple members low of the Phenoms here trying to run away and get out. As we do see Vistix falling fairly low here to Vacus. Vacus does pick up that kill, but Drew's food falls in return. This is starting to turn into a bit of a barn burner in this fight as we see Vacus coming back into this fight, stunning out Brownside. But it looked like the remaining members of Phenoms will back as we saw Clay City on the left-hand side of the map pushing down that T1 and T2 tower, so giving a lot of farm to that Artemis.
Yeah, I think that's what that Artemis really needed to come back into this fight. Because I mean, just after that, now she has a 1 level lead, and level down online. It looks like Artemis is going into crit here, which is something I don't think I've seen on Artemis lately.
We have seen the meta shifting a bit more, I know, in a couple Pro League matches.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I just feel like her kit right now is so good with that bow build. I mean, 80% of speed stem, just so much power out of that silver build. What are your thoughts on that? Justin? Did he lag out again?
I'm
Oh. That's there you go.
I don't know what happened to my internet.
Dude, I don't even think it's your internet because it's happening to me. I can watch everything else clear.
As we see a fight breakout, Armor Wolf does able to pick up Blue's food, and Bacchus does trade out for Vistix. Brownside falling to Clay City in the back as well, as we see the double Cthulhu and how strong that is, as Buggy Dude falls to Clay City as well. Now Armor Wolf being chased out, but the King's Duke fighting a demanding fight. Just how powerful that double Cthulhu and that emoji healing can sustain up the team. And now the King's Dukes will find no reward in this Primal Fury, but I think they're making a slight misplay. I think the Buggy Dude and Viz being down, almost being poked out, having the back, they could have just ran and taken that Fire Giant.
I feel like they maybe could have taken Fire Giant with. I feel like they just have a little bit of steal potential. I don't think they really wanted to risk it this early. I don't think they're that good yet.
Overall, they
But it
do
was
bring that
definitely
game.
possible.
Overall, they do bring this game back to fairly equal, as we saw the gold graphs. About a 800 gold difference between these two teams. The experience close to dead even. 200, I think, was separating those teams when I saw it. About 80 in favor now of the Kings Duke. So really a really tight game as we come out of this mid game and start looking towards these late game team fights, with both teams looking like they're grouping up for these Fire Giant fights here, probably with the Kings Dukes next back.
Yeah, I really think this next team fight is going to kind of decide a lot of the way this fight is definitely going to be a dancer on fire right here. As you see the Kings Dukes warding up around it, kind of getting ready in preparation for this. You know, maybe this Artemis might split push left, and it
Yeah.
really just there's a lot of factors that can go into this. But it looks like Phenoms is grouping towards that fire as well right about now.
Yeah, both teams looking like they're going to start grouping up. In terms of the relic situation, we see that Kursonk is down on ties of King's Dukes, but they do commit on to Drew's Food a little bit, giving up that Socket ultimate. Drew's Food getting his ultimate force as well, now having to back up. But they do have a little bit of sustain, so maybe that Emoji will look to just sustain him up, but he actually does back instead, giving up this Pyromancer over to the Phenoms. A little bit of nice gold in hand, a little bit of extra XP, but Vakis is on the backside here looking for Buggy. Dude does find a decent amount of poke as we see Sandman, but Vakis gets erased by Vistix, staying out of that ultimate for a little bit too long as Archie's now being surrounded by a couple members of the Phenoms looking to re-engage onto him as well. Gets his ultimate forced and RG should fall here too.
Yeah, this is looking like a huge fight for Phenoms right here. Probably a fire call with maybe a little bit of defense. They do have to be wary as Tusky is up into the Artemis Play City. That is not something you want when you're grouped up with all. That is a team fight killer right there. Play City solos Omar and brings Tusky into the fight in the middle of damage coming out. Armor picks up the kill onto Sandman Samuel. Kills coming out in the back. Boogie dude.
Play gets Pluck, gets his beads for it.
The beads.
Drew is in the back line, might look to find Buggy Dude, but Buggy Dude does get a bit of healing off now. Drew is really low, and he does fall to Omawolf. Omawolf picking up the triple kill in that fight.
The hell is gonna bring them in, I think.
Yeah, they should be able to get, well, Vakis and RG all finally off their respawn timer, so it might just be the Pyromancer for this Phenom roster after they find pretty much a wash in this team fight. But Vok is solid, but he does pay his life.
I mean, that's a good steal, I think, for them, but I don't know, man. With, that full team coming up to that Pyro now, they might be able to just run out of backing and straight to that Fire Giant.
It will be
that double Cthulhu will go down.
It will be a bit difficult, but with that Cthulhu having his ultimate available to him and not G's ultimate coming up soon, they could create a lot of separation on this Fire Giant, and Clay City being there as well. Could be very difficult, but Clay not having beads could make him a very easy target for Omar to go on top of, with Omar having his beads available to him and a Magi's cloak. So he's going to be very hard to peel off of Clay if they do look to defend this Fire Giant. But with both members of Phenoms on this left-hand side of the map looking to pick up their buffs, I don't think the Fire Giant is in the hands of Phenoms anymore, with the King's Duke being off a respawn. And I think interesting in that last fight, I think the engagement was just a bit weird. Archie and Vakis gets picked off very early. Vakis being a bit, how would I put this, a bit selfish, not using his ulti there, thinking he could get away with a little bit more than he could, and getting picked off by Viz fairly early into that fight. And then the King's Duke finding a decent Fire Giant defense off the back end of it, and just really prolonging this next fight for even longer, and really this game breaking wide open depending on who wins the next fight fairly clean.
Yeah, Jeremy, can we get
Sandman does fall, gets shredded as we saw that Sundo coming out. Now Brownside looking to chase as Clay City gets his ultimate forced out with that boar stunning out every member, but Omar blinking in, does find that double top, but it does jump away. Looking to heal the remainder members of this team. Vakis, RG, and Drew all have their ultimate, so with most of the ults off of this Phenoms team, actually all of them gone, the Hell just has a transformation. Vakis is looking in, but does get picked out really, really low. He might just die here immediately, and he is really low, but Drews does pick up Omawolf on the backside, and a decent ultimate coming out of the emoji, but both of them are able to walk out. Vakis does fall, and leaving it to be a 4v3 onto this Fire Giant. RG does have the sustain coming out. Sobek does blink in, find a decent tail whip, but gets trapped. Plucking out, gets picked really low as the fight continues. With Drew Food does pop his ult, but is getting melted by these double Hunter comp. And now they turn their attention to Clay City, just kind of getting ran down by Drew's Food, but Sandman Samuel is off the respawn and will force the members of Phenoms to back off. Amazing.
fire dances.
Amazing disengage by the King's Dukes there. Drew's Food getting out with just a sliver of health. Clay City getting out with maybe one auto left to live. Really
Yeah,
good disengagements by both teams.
I think that was huge. I mean, that Nike ult couldn't have been more perfectly timed. Right? That was a
Yes.
sliver of health on Drew right there. Healed Thorns on top of it too, knowing that a Sunder was probably coming on the backside of it. Dealt a lot of damage the other way. I mean, just look at the damage right there. I think entering that fight, this was a 10K.
Yeah.
Artemis did the most in that. I have to say, just I think she hit a 5-man Tusky on the disengage there. Just huge damage numbers coming out. Lots of traps hit. Lots of peel with just that little trap. And it looks like they're gonna switch their attention towards Gold Fury here because nobody can seem to make really a play there on. What objective at this point?
Yeah, I think the King's Dukes need to be a bit careful. It seems like a lot of these engagements, they find one or two of the members just being a bit greedy, being a bit too far first up, or just being a bit by themselves at the start of these engagements and finding themselves picked off early. It does show great how well the King's Dukes can take a 4v5 with how much they're either washing these 4v5s out or just forcing the Phenoms to not be able to do objectives. But we saw at that last Primal Fury when they were all 5 strong, Sandman, Samuel, Vacus, both getting the ulti off, they cleanly won the fight. So I would like to see this King Duke squad be a little bit less aggressive and look for more so that counter engage. Force the Phenoms to fight them because they should just win every fight.
Yeah, I think with the double Cthulhu ult, it's not forced out and it's used correctly. I think it's extremely hard to stop. You do see the Kins on Hachi at this point, which is huge into shredding those Cthulhus. It's a lot of damage. Hopefully a Telekines. It looks like it's coming in on the exact last
Yep.
but hopefully it's Telekines. Phenoms do pick up the Pyromancer for basically free, just a little bit of poke coming out on the other side. Not much going on here. Just a little bit of a dance around fire yet again. And we'll
Yeah,
see as
definitely.
this team fight plays out.
We've been saying these next few fights will really, well, the last few fights will really break open the team fight, will break open the game, but neither of these fights have really broken up the game. We just see a bunch of series of members getting picked off and then a couple getting low and then clean disengages from both teams. So they're still really looking for this next fight. And whoever really finds this next one cleanly should open up the game. And with EFG spawning here in about 2.5 minutes, we could be close to seeing EFG being the first fire giant off the map.
Yeah, I mean, I'd honestly probably like to see a fire giant call coming out here from the team. Like this is the time to fight. Because if you kind of go for it and you lose it on this one, it's as much as losing that EFG. Losing
Definitely.
this regular fire giant isn't going to be as crippling. If an EFG call comes out later, 3 minutes, it could very well end the game with that.
We see 2 mannequin hidden blades onto the King's Dukes that Nike and Morgan could be very sneaky and find a bunch of burst damage straight up front onto one of these supports. I think that's something they aren't utilizing as well. Vac is just looking. They could just find a stun onto Brownside and really erase him from these fights super early, but he's really going for that 100 blow someone up in the backline play, which is very viable as well. And if he is able to find that, it could just easily win the fight entirely outright. So really either option's available to him, but I would like to see him maybe take that first option or at least attempt it.
Blood coming out from Sobek and the dash from Cthulhu on the other side as well. Drew just sitting here procking Mannequin Blade over and over and over again as it seems, just sitting there procking his one mannequin, then he runs away. Proc mannequin, run away. That seems to be the name of the game right now. There is a hell on the other side. All that poke is kind of for naught. Look at that. There's the poke. Hell heals it right back up to full HP again.
He
Not
needs
really
to
a
be
lot you can do with
careful here. He needs to be careful here. He doesn't have much, well, any MP5 in the build at all in terms of sustain, and he is backing here. I would like to see him. Yeah, he does do the back just to regain a little bit of mana before this fight breaks out. Maybe look for some woods. And if the Dukes were to send anyone to back to base, I think it should be him.
Yeah, you see Phenoms back too here. They backed Sobek and Hachi. Could have been a play maybe there from the Kings Dukes if they had that information. Because honestly, if you see two people backing, that 4v3 fight could have been huge in their favor. But I don't think they had the information.
My
I think
revenge.
Look
But
how smart
Sobek
both
backing-
these teams are.
But that Sobek backing is actually huge, dude. He picked up his Sentinels upgrade. That is a lot of protection.
As we see Sandman blinking in, looking towards Viztix, is finding a lot of good damage on top of him as the members of the Phenoms is getting a bit split in this fight. Buggy Dude is getting fairly low, so is Sandman Samuel, but Buggy Dude finding a good little escape, but Brownside does fall to Clave City, and now we see Bacchus, he turns into the Cthulhu. Really looking for Viz and Buggy Dude, but is able to find Buggy Dude, and now looks like he's gonna disengage just a little bit, but Clay City finds Armor Wolf off the great knockup by Bacchus as he starts to come out of that Cthulhu, but Omar is on the side, might look for a little pick just to be sneaky, but a great fight coming out of the Kings Dukes, losing 0. Remember, as we see, Omar is blinking in, but not able to find anything, does get knocked up by the EFG. Clay City is backing here. Bacchus going to fall, just a bit unsafe for this positioning. Viztix is able to find that one. And now
Yeah,
the
I think
members
that's
of...
a huge play. Kind of not allowing him to switch that EFG, you know, forcing again just another dance around it with absolutely nothing.
And
We are 31 minutes into the game with no fire.
no fire giant taken at all. And Phenoms have found themselves with a little bit of a window if they wanted to take it, knowing Bacchus is going to be down for an extra 25 seconds after Omo respawns. They might want to look to take a really quick 4v5 either on this Oni Fury or on EFG itself, and they could really start to snowball this game into their favor. As we see Viz is looking over towards it, but Clay City and G are here to defend. Viz just deciding to get that vision on top of it and to pressure it a bit more. They do know this is going on. Brownside does rotate to give a little bit of assistance as the Hell and Socket do the Pyromancer. So splitting these two objectives, Viz is getting a bit poked out by this Oni Fury here, as Cthulhu is rotating on the backside.
Yeah, Phenoms picking up Pyro on the other side. That might not be the best pickup right about now, as they do know there is members on the other side. Rotating in over to that. Try and look for some damage.
Sandman just
a lot of damage.
As King Dukes do pick up that Oni Fury, Sandman did a great job of keeping those two players coming into that Gold Fury pit, and the Phenoms not quick enough to react to that one in order to defend that Oni Fury. I think they were really forced off after Viz lost a bunch of his health to it. Viz does complete his Blood-Soaked Shroud, and it will give him a decent amount of physical protections against Drew when he does dive in, but it's really just how much damage Sandman, Samuel, and Bacchus do with that double Cthulhu roll.
Yeah, the Phenoms cannot do this dance around fire. Oni Wave is pushing down left lane. As you see, it is going to be there. It is meeting a double wave, so if he's going to be held up for a little bit, it's not be held up. Viz clearing it out of mid, so it's not there. But that Oni Wave is huge. As you see, they're already pinging it out. They know it's up.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to have to defend that, or else that is a free Phoenix for the next round.
Yeah, the Phenoms have to either take a fight here or know that they have to send someone back and hope their 4v5 can hold up. Because that King Zook's wave is going to start slow pushing in, as they're going to get some assistance by that wave close to the purple buff. As we see Drew stepping up, looking for that poke onto Viztix, as I was talking about. And a fight starts to break out. Sandman Samuel does blink in. A great Yamojo coming out, and the Cthulhu comes out as well. Clay City able to find Buggy Dude and Brownside, but Omar does pick up Drew Food in the midst of that fight, as Bacchus picks up Viz as well. This is a 3-for-1 so far. Omar Wolf dashing through both Cthulhu ults, looking for some damage, as Omar Wolf does find his way out of that fight, and Omar is pushed out of that fight as well. But a clean win for the Dukes, as a lot of the members are still fairly healthy. It's just Sandman that's a bit low, and they will look to pull this EFG as that wave is still pushing on the left. Omar does have to back, but he looks like he wants to come try to defend this EFG, as Omar is above the corner. Will he look for the steal? He might just look for Bacchus here. Bacchus does get his beads forced right there. As Omar jumps out, they're still pulling that EFG. It is getting lower and lower. Omar Wolf is here. he isn't able to steal it, and now he's in a bit of a tricky situation, but it looks like the members of the King's Deuce will just back off.
Yeah, that EFG is huge there. Left wave is now pushing onto that Phoenix. There needs to be somebody over there to defend it. It's someone straight to right lane. They need to get those low.
Minions do kind of save that Phoenix though. The archers weren't quite able to, and there's so many archers there. They could have easily taken 400 or 500 HP off that Phoenix, but they instead, that wave kind of buys a little bit of extra time for the Phenoms to get over there. Now, here's the real question I've got to ask you. If you're the Phenoms, how do you take these fights? How do you defend these fights against the King's Dukes? Because I think the lane fights, and especially on top of these Phoenixes, are just going to be absolutely absurd. None of the walls to kind of just prohibit them. It might cost the Yamoja, might give her a little bit less power in terms of locking down these opponents, but in terms of that Cthulhu, he's just got open space to play.
Yeah, I don't really think there's enough shred to really get rid of that Cthulhu, and I think trying to defend these Phoenixes here, a huge play is going to have to be, out of Omar getting that onto the Morrigan before he can ult. His agent is down, his beads are down. If that information is relayed, hopefully they can get a little bit of a Sir Kettles on him and just blow him up. There shouldn't be anything he's able to do about it. And if you get rid of that second Cthulhu, they have a huge chance of defending these Phoenixes here.
Yeah.
Letting one fall with CFG.
Vac is definitely might be the target the Phenoms are looking for, especially knowing his relics are down. They are buying a bit of time for Vac, is doing their due diligence, finding these two towers before they start the push, but it is going to be very difficult for the Phenoms to find that pick, especially just with how much Peel Clay and the healing out of RNG. It might be a bit difficult, but I think you hit the nail right on the head. They are going to maybe have to try to find Vacus before those beads and Aegis come up and really blow them up before this fight takes off, because one Cthulhu is hard enough to deal with, but two can really make this game out of control.
Yeah, in Phoenix, I think it provides so much space for, as you see right here, 32,000 damage to Clay City on the Artemis. It gives them so much space to work with, really shred any backliners or any frontliners. No real threats, and he can
Interesting to see the Dukes prioritizing this mid Phoenix, but we do see ping, so they are starting to rotate out. Could we see player healing before this fight breaks out? I would really be interested to see how much Buggy Dude and Achi are doing with this, with both teams having Ankh and the amount of anti-heal they do have. Mitigated. As we see, Sandman is blinking in, Cursed Ankh coming out immediately. Drufu comes in and ults too. Viz is in a terrible spot, does get the corporeal form, is able to find his way out of that Yamoja ult, but Sandman Sam is still wrecking this team fight. The members of Phenoms have to retreat here. All of them are staying alive, but they still have that second Cthulhu ult with Vacus. Actually, no, he is in the Cthulhu ult as I speak, so it might just be a disengage by the Dukes here, knowing that they don't have any ultimate available to them.
Yeah, I honestly think the Phenoms could pursue a fight here on this match. Vacus here. They know the relics are down. No beads down, however, but they maybe can defend this victory, but especially only losing one Phoenix from EFG, I don't think that's a huge loss. I think it kind of comes back around to another dance.
It'd be a bit difficult with that Cursed Ankh on the side of Phenoms being down, the Sunders being down, and with EFG and them being fairly healthy as it was, and G just there to supplement that healing off of EFG. Omar and Armor Soul isn't going to be enough alone. It would have to take the King's Duke seriously misplaying that fight to really come out ahead. As we see that 3K pot coming out of this Artemis, she's really swinging, and she's definitely going to be swinging after she picks up that 3K pot. Spectral armor is on this hell, and on Brown side, but other than that, no one else having that crit protection, and she's just making big plays in these team fights, finding a lot of damage in between this double Cthulhu.
As you see, she is 3K potted up for this next fight. You see it in the pocket. Big burst damage. Honestly, last fight you didn't see not a lot of from there, although I think he was more on the just making sure that Phoenix QSL because I believe that was the main target. That Draugr also a good pickup. He should have happened before the Phoenix defense, however. But
The
this,
Phenoms do a pretty good job. I apologize. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna point out that Phenoms have to be very careful right here with that left Phoenix being down. I mean, it's
Mhm.
kind of the same as the the Oni wave pushing that kind of allowed them the space to kind of get in there and do their thing.
Yeah.
You could take the play-by-play as this fight to commence. I do believe.
Yeah, I agree with you. They do need to be a bit careful. They did do an all-right job pushing up to about the purple buff, but as you see, that wave is already shoving its way back closer and closer to the Titan room. So the Phenoms are on a bit of a timer before they have to send someone back, and the Dukes are more than content on waiting. As I said, I think they should really look to play this either counter engage, force the Phenoms to either take a fight or give it up. And at this point, I don't know if the Phenoms can really afford to give this up. I just think the King's Duke comp is just outscales them so hard and just does so much damage, creates so much space, and the Phenoms really don't have anybody they can really kill but unless they find Bacchus here, which they do pluck in the midst of the team fight. Gets his Aegis Force immediately, but does turn into, I believe, the hell, but gets blown up by Wolf immediately. Wolf is now on the backside being chased out, does get his Aegis Force, but he does end up falling to Drew's food as Clay City gets picked up by Omar on the backside as G, and then we're looking to play the fight a bit differently than the other members of the King's Dukes. As we see now a little bit of a disengage, but Omar finds Drew's food as well.
Pardon me.
And now a big fight for the Phenoms here as they have the 4v2 flex.
Their
And
Titan is getting pounded right now.
the Titan is getting pounded. There's 2 fire waves in that Titan room. Interesting to see, will the Phenoms look to take a base race with the...
back?
They might look for the end here, but minions are gonna kill your base before you kill their base. You guys need a back here. If G and Sandman know, they need to stop these backs now. They need to get in there, not let Brownside back there. And they do stop the back. This is just gonna be the game. Minions are gonna take game 1 for the Kings. Dukes not even close, baby. Oh, Skeet, what do you have to say after that one?
I don't know if there is much to say on that one. That's just wow. Not thinking that Winions are a thing. Winions getting the job done.
Big misplay.
Wow. I think they maybe thought it was only one wave in the Titan from their side there.
I think that's a big misplay out of the Phenoms there. They definitely had the personnel. They got their picks. They could have back saved their Titan and got their Phoenix up before that next EFG dance, really. And so a huge misplay and cost them the game, actually.
Yeah, I honestly think if they just back there, even Brown was at 1 HP. If he just backs and heads back into the Titan room, he can even create enough space and kind of get a lot of damage onto the archers to give the Titan enough health, and they could even base race it with just 3 people. But nobody backing there really just
It would have
that
been
is a huge
close
misplay.
with G and Sandman there, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. They should have just backed because that was just a big misplay and that cost them game 1, and that gives the Kings Duke just that much more footing into this set and really just need to find one more win, whereas the Phenoms now have to find 2 straight.
Yes, indeed. So that was a win for someone in chat who just missed for the Kings Dukes, and we will be looking forward to game 2. Stay tuned. And we're back here for game 2, Phenoms versus the Dukes. The Dukes take a very close game 1 there with a sick base race for it to end that unfortunately the Phenoms seem to not be ready for. They did not predict, and they lost.
Yes, definitely. Very, very close game indeed. Especially, I guess I can put on my next tier list. Phenoms are going to be under minions once I do my next tier list. All joking aside there, but it is a very close game as we see that Artemis getting banned out immediately, not wanting Clay City to have that. And I agree with that. Clay City was an absolute monster. I think into that game with what 40k player damage. Uh, it
Mm-hmm.
just was nuts. And then them also learning their lesson, get the emoji healing out of here, get those walls. She found a couple good traps in that fight, really selecting brown side off, not really wanting that to happen again.
Yeah, but they do have to be wary coming into these last couple bans here. There are some very, very good gods here available. You know, there is
Odin,
that Odin. There is the
Morgan Le
Osiris
Fay,
is banned. The Gilg finally gets here. Yeah, Morgan Le Fay.
Morgan Le Fay.
So
One of the three
there's
are going to be open.
yeah, one of those is going to be open. So we're going to see what happens here with this final ban. Phenoms might be strategically leaving stuff open here just so that way they can pick it up.
Yep.
Duke's really going to think about this hard here as they
I would
take a hard stop on this.
I would like to actually see a soul ban here, but she has been in the meta for a little bit now, but she has kind of fallen out of that top three bigs. But as I say that, they do ban the Odin. But I just think I've seen Viz be fairly successful on the soul so far, and he seems to like to prioritize that pick regardless. But he does end up elect to take that Morgan Le Fay, so I'm excited to see how he plays on that. I don't think Viz's playstyle really fits that more artillery style. I think he likes that kind of be in the midst of the team fight, doing a bunch of auto attack damage and stuff, more like that hunter. But he is a fairly new mid laner, so I'm excited to see how he performs on that Morgan and Fay as Clay City does take the Hachimat and that Fafnir for G, the Fafnir that was banned last game. So how do you expect this Fafnir to play a role? Especially he's going to be hard to peel off that Morgan Le Fay. She does have good self peel, but he's just really tanky, does a lot of damage.
I mean, that Fafnir pick is really big. You know, as we said, there were a lot of good picks being left up here, and Fafnir is certainly one of them. If he is played well, you know, he can be deadly. If you're hitting hammers, you are winning your game for your team. Just it's great for peel. It's great for just locking people down. And as you said, it plays pretty well into the Morgan Le Fay. You know, she's not really able to do a whole lot with her kit there, as we see actually a Jean Kui
Jorge,
getting
I
hovered here.
I like
Ooh.
this. Oh, Baba Yaga being locked in. I love the Baba Yaga pick. You already know how I feel about Baba Yaga. I'm a Raijin one trick, but I love Baba Yaga at heart. Um, I would have liked to see the Jean Quay actually. I think Jean Quay would have done fairly successful into this comp. If the Morgan Le Fay, once he goes into that ult form, he is knockup immune, so the Kakolin has difficulty knocking him up. The Morgan Le Fay can't use her 2 to peel him off of her, so he could have been a very good counter pick. But I do love the Baba Yaga, very tanky in that mid lane. I think will help Bacchus with a little bit of issues just getting picked off a bit early, and does a bunch of burst damage. And you see Ymir, Morgan Le Fay, they can't run away from that Baba.
Yeah, like Baba is such a great pickup. You know, we've seen Baba Yaga, especially in your set on the Baba Justin. Just absolutely like her ult just changes team fights. You don't even really
Yes.
consider it just because she hasn't been in the game very long. And so when you're trying to think of like what's the best play, you don't even expect Giant House dropping in, knocking everyone up, and then you just have circles dealing dummy numbers.
Yes.
So it's
CC.
kind of crazy.
I don't expect this outwash to be locked in, but I agree with you. Baba Yaga is absolutely nuts. She's great. She's been out of the meta. She's been in the game for actually a little bit longer than you think. but about a year and a half, 2 years maybe. But she just hasn't been very viable. But a lot of kit changes, a lot of buffs coming her way has really found her solidified at the top of this meta right now. I think one of the top 5 mages in my opinion. But interesting to see that Baba Yaga, her dash can be canceled by that Ymir fairly easily. That fear can come down on top of her, but she is a bit slippery too, so she might be a bit hard to catch with that fear to cancel a dash, but she should be fairly safe.
Yeah, I mean in terms of like, like it's I
Yeah.
remember her launching. So,
Yeah. Definitely. New to the old heads out here. Especially when we see some gods out here for 8
This is
years and
one
she's only
tail
2
you
years old.
don't want to chase, darling.
yeah, like, the old-fashioned rise. We do see Serket actually locked in instead of the Pooch. Slightly unfortunate, but uh, trying to see if they're able to do this a little bit better this game here with this Serket. What do you think?
I like the Socket pick. Omar doesn't have a jungler yet, and he did fairly well throughout that early game. And so it's a little bit of a kind of a banish, but taking it away from Omar, giving it to Drew's food. I think it will fit him fairly well. She is gonna be pretty decent into this Morgan Le Fay, or just maybe looking for this Ymir. But as we see Cupid being hovered and counterpick, he's kind of falling out of the meta as well. But with a lot of these members relying on their mobility, that Fafnir, Baba Yaga relying on their mobility, and the Socket, that Cupid cripple could play a huge role in terms of these late game team fights if placed in the right spot.
Talk about out of meta. We haven't seen the Monkey Man himself in a while, and he does get picked up here as
Jean
Jean-Qui.
Quay.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, I love this draft. I think the Kings Dukes have played both drafts really well. As I was talking about the Jean Quay, you can't peel him off the Morgan Le Fay. He's going to do an excellent job. There is a little bit more pressure now on his beads with Brownside being there, the Hun Bats ult being there. The Cupid does have that cripple field, but I believe he is slow immune in his ult, so he shouldn't really care and just continue running it down. But I think it's a great pickup. He's going to have a hard time. Uh, in the laning phase, I would say that if Omar was on anything that had pressure, but he does pick that Hunbat, so the Jean Quay should have a fairly easy laning phase as well, with that Socket being a pretty strong matchup into the Hunbats. So I think this is a pretty great comp, but not a comp to slack by the Phenoms as well. They do have a lot of pressure on beads, and they can really look to play around the team fight ultimates fairly well as well. Kakolin having a great engage can force a lot of relics out just by the amount of damage and CC he can do by himself. And then Omar can come in and just midst of the fight disperse everybody in this team fight, really split these engagements, and then we already know how much damage Morgan Le Fay can do. And to be honest, Morgan Le Fay, no one really talks about it. I actually heard it I think today in SPL. Morgan Le Fay, let's just call it what it is. Her one is just a little Hunbot's ult.
Yeah, I mean, her CC is absolutely nuts all the frickin' time. That's the reason why she gets banned top. She's so annoying to deal with. It's way too big. She still does way too much damage. As we load in here, just gotta get up for the people watching here. So, oh, I need to switch those names real quick. Don't mind me.
So while you're switching those names, I know Skeet should
Oh
be
no, I don't.
joining back here soon, but before you leave the call, well, not leave the call, but before you
Oh, yeah.
kind of mute in the
Stupid.
call, I would want to see what your thoughts are in terms of these two drafts. Who you think would take names away and everything? Who do you think gets the edge in this draft?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure this is a. I didn't switch the names in game. That's why I was going nuts. I do have to give it to the King's Dukes. Just because, like, as everything goes away on my side. Let's see here. There we go. That brings everything back. There we go. There we go. I apologize. I have to give it to the King's Dukes because I mean, just look at that comp. That's just kind of crazy. Coming into
Yeah.
this, like I said, Monkey Man has really fallen off, and like that's a lot of alt bots coming in there late game. Like Armor Wolf is going to be schlapping for sure, but once he drops the ultimate, he's just kind of like there. Once Hunbots drops the ultimate, he's kind of just there. So, like, they really have to play along with Viz. Viz is going to have to be dummy thick, as well as Buggy and Brownside pulling off some excellent CC to protect Armor, Omar, really, and Viz. So,
Yes.
the other side does not have that equivalent. They have a lot of pressure in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms.
Yes, Viz definitely, I agree with you, has a lot on his shoulders here, and especially a lot to prove in this set and in this game in particular. So I think it is on the back of him and how well he can play these team fights and how much damage he can get off. And if he can get it off safely, I know they have a lot of things that can just get on top of him and stay on top of him. So it's really going to be up to Viz, in my opinion. I think Armor Wolf, I agree with you. Once that ultimate comes out, he's kind of just you plug and play Hunter. He's got a dash. He's got a little bit of healing, but other than that, he's any Hunter can really do that as well. Not the healing, but just the damage. And then they'd have a really strong dive comp on the side of King's Duke, so they just need to be very careful with their positioning and really take these fights wisely and know when they need to be dropping these ults.
Yeah, and so I will leave it to you guys now, as we do have Quack and Stopley coming in with Omar DCing. And we'll have a good old-fashioned Skeet come in here, give us his thoughts as we get into the beginning of the game.
Howdy doody. I'm back. Yet again.
Howdy.
Fun stuff, right? Okay. Um, did you already go over your thoughts on the draft? I'm pretty sure that was kind of.
Yes, we did. What are your thoughts, Ski, coming into it? I know you played a bit of a factor in these two comps. We did give the slight edge to Kings Dukes, taking names away. We think the draft is just a bit stronger, provides a lot of damage and a lot of mobility, able to really dive into these Phenoms backliners who will have a decent time, will have a struggle trying to get away from the Circuit and this Fafnir and this Zhonghui itself as well. But in terms of your opinion, what are you really looking forward to these two comps bringing?
Um, so speaking from the side of Phenoms comp, 'cause I mean, I don't know their plan, their ideas behind it. Obviously, Morgan Le Fay just extremely strong right now, huge poke damage, able to burn beads by literally just chucking an ability over the wall. You know, just that constant presence and the taunt. Um, I think it presents a lot of pressure, is what I think it is. I think the Hoonbots is gonna, you know, the main role is to keep that Baba down. If that Baba's allowed to free cast, that is to me this game over. Uh, Baba being shut down, Baba when they're allowed to free cast any Baba,
Yep.
anybody who can, hit their keys correctly in the correct order and land them. Just you're gonna be top damage. You're gonna get a lot of kills, and you're gonna just absolutely roll. But a Baba that's not allowed to play the game, that's forced to use their dash early or get their dash canceled out, is a useless mid. So
Yep.
I mean, there's kind of the two sides to it, and I think that's what it's really gonna come down to. I mean, even looking at these, I think there's a lot of self peel on the side of Phenoms as well. That Circuit, two abilities are completely useless when diving armor unless you burn the bead, because of the ult. You can't use any, the cripple, and I think that's kind of the main factor on the Cupid there. A lot of self peel idea, for him and the Morgan Le Fay in case of
Yes.
that Circuit diving.
I agree with you, especially I think Vakis is going to have to hit his buttons wisely. We have seen in the Crack and Pause League how effective a Baba can be when being left to free cast. So I think it is going to be on the side of the Phenoms to try to stop that free casting. Brown side has a good interrupt. Omar can interrupt that buggy dude. I don't think can just because she is knockup immune in that, but they do have a couple options to stop her from getting away and out of their hands. But I think you hit the nail on the head. If the Phenoms want to find success in this game, I think it's going to be off of the back of blowing up Drew's food and stopping him and making him scared to want to engage just because of how much pressure and how much damage they can blow him up with. And if they can stop this Baba from free casting in the backline.
Jeremy, what is going on with that tree, man? What is happening?
Yeah, a quick
Yeah.
dropping into that will do it. Game is good.
Yeah, but I honestly think it's going to be a well contested set. I think the Phenoms have a little bit of an early game advantage as well this year. The pressure that he does provide in lane. I mean, Fafnir is a great pick. It really should come online. More towards the late game. He would really
Yeah.
that full team sim. I'd have to give it to the duo lane. Pressure.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think Phenoms have a bunch amount of pressure as we see a little bit of poke come out to G, but doesn't really elect too much. Just they do get good and decent amount of pressure coming out of this duo lane, but I really want to turn my eyes towards this Hun Bats in the jungle compared to this. Okay, this Hun Bats is gonna really be struggling until he really hits that 5 mark. He's not gonna be able to really fight against that. Maybe the Moonlight can fake and really carry this up. But I think the way to play for the King's Duke is really through this solo side. I think this Hunbats is really going to have a tough time contesting this Socket in the jungle period. And as we see Sandman already getting pressure on his own, so really creating an outlet for this Kings Dukes team to play. And even once that Hunbats doesn't get his ult, until he gets some CCR, that's a 2-minute cooldown. So it's really going to be give a lot of windows of opportunity for this Kings Dukes squad to kind of operate.
Yeah, you see Sandman icing the wave over there, knowing he has the pressure behind him. Maybe in early game, relieve that pressure.
As we see Totem goes down in favor of the King's Dukes as well. That's GG right there. Everybody knows if you're a solo laner and if you're anybody else on the map and your solo lane doesn't get Totem, early game's over. They just costed you. You need a F6. You're not going to make it out of this early game phase. The Phenoms just have so much. Oh, the Dukes have so much mana now. The Phenoms can't compete.
Totem OP.
Totem is OP. As you see a little bit of a contention as Vacus does a little poke, just kind of helping the Phenoms clear these oracles, and steps away to go get his red buff. Just check in, say hi.
Sure his damage numbers are up there. Just wanted to make sure.
Just let him know that he knows that they're doing that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see a lot of pressure early onto this Baba Yaga before she really comes online around that second or third item mark. She really gets online, you know, once that
that coin, soul gem kind of warlocks kind of come out.
The warlocks. What? Yeah, I was looking at the name after the health one. Once that comes online, it is full stack, Baba stack fairly quickly with her passive. That's where she really starts to become a problem. Getting all that health and all that shield and her ult, it's really hard.
The Drew's Food blinking in on top of Vistix here. Does get that ultimate onto him as well as he's trying to run away here. Vacus is there looking to find the autos, is able to find the auto, and the First Blood coming onto this Baba Yaga. That's not what you want to see, especially after what you were talking about. You don't want to see this Baba Yaga getting online as quick as possible, and that's just going to accelerate the process as the Dukes off that First Blood find themselves about 1,000 gold ahead. So they've been not only get the 500 First Blood bounty, but been farming fairly well as well.
Yeah, I think that was just either a miscommunication or just not really paying attention, seeing that Surcat was already level 5, really set up that First Blood there.
I think Brown missed his freeze as well, just before you go into, I think the Surcat blinked past his freeze.
Yeah, that'll do it as well, but Viz does hit that level 5 mark here, but you know, maybe if Viz is able to ult out of that, then, you know, I think Surcat or Drew's probably saw an opportunity there. First Blood Dukes.
And I agree with you. With Viz not being 5 there, did just make him very vulnerable. Maybe could have found his outlet out. That Surcat anti-heal would have been down if he had his ult towards the tail end and maybe gets out with just getting a bunch of healing off of that. But it goes to show those two supports rotating a bit early out of the lane you typically see in maybe the SPL a little just often these supports coming out of lane, maybe level 5, maybe level 6. Both these supports leaving lane at level 4 might have just costed the mid laners there a bit. Both of them were level 4 during that engagement, but if Viz was 5, he should have been safe as we see a little bit of an engagement onto Buggy Dude. Both ultimates being used, and he should just fall here as the last auto out of Sandman does take it. Omar just a victim there, sitting there watching it happen. Not much he can really do.
You know, it's kind of funny looking at that too, because it looks like they were going to disengage. It's like, caught Boogie there with the very last pick of his 2 there, and ended up pulling him in, kind of setting up that kill. But it looked like they were going to do some gauge off.
Nah,
That-
he's just so good. He knows his numbers.
No, I mean they turned around. If you go back and watch it, it looked like they turned around. And, oh shit, I hit him, you know, kind of
Yeah.
that, and I mean it turned into a kill. It's bring that picture back. Really let him bump up his move. Huge.
And now the Dukes actually have about a 2,000 gold lead, actually a little bit more than that, so doing a great job on this map. And if you were the Phenoms, what would you be looking to do to kind of just pull back this early game a bit towards in your favor?
Start ulting anybody, or pick a target, ult them on cooldown. You know, just Hoonbot's ult. You need to be using it. I honestly don't think we've seen it yet.
Nope.
Especially with that Yoden's already online, we need to see more Hoonbot's ults.
As we see, Armor Wolf looking for a bit of damage onto Clay City. Does find that ult damage and the heart bomb, just not quite enough to clear Clay City, and he will be able to get this wave too. So, not much loss. Did the beads get forced out of Clay? No, none at all. But I agree with you. I think they need to find a pick here. So, Ket not having beads, Jean Quay not having beads. I think those are your 2 primary targets. If you're this Hun Bats, you're calling Brownside, you're calling Viz. You say, let's go blow up this Jean Quay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. There's a little bit of pressure coming out here. Blue up. Hopefully, looks like they're a little bit too late.
It does get stolen, but Brownside is on the backside, does get taunted. Great taunt out of Drew's food, but Buggy Dude does pick him up, pays the price, but still in that blue buff as they now looking for maybe a blue buff invade themselves. I don't know if they have timer, but it does have a little bit on spawning as Sandman's
out of position.
steps up. He needs to be careful here. He does call the ghost, but here comes the Huntbats all freeze out of Brownside, but that DR does get him out of there. Ymir ult coming out. Buggy Dude is able to find a second kill in that fight. That's a great play by the Phenoms and a big misplay out of the Kings Duke. Sandman stepping back up. Drew's food died, getting him that blue buff, but Sandman stepping up really costed himself his own life.
Yeah, you see him putting this pressure onto the blue buff. Not a little surprised to not see him take it there. They did have a 2-to-1 advantage. I mean, their ults were down, but giving that up for free, it's kind of. I feel like they should have stolen that.
Yeah, you feel like they should have.
You know, one freeze. And
he did miss the freeze. Drews did a great job stepping back, baiting the freeze out of Brownside, and Brownside misses, I think, a second freeze of this game. So we see an engagement coming onto Viztix. Is getting a bunch of healing off, is able to find the hammer. Will the Baba Yaga damage be enough? And it will, as we see the dragon transformation as a re-engage might happen here. Ben does find another stun onto Brownside here, but it looks like the members of the King's Dukes wanted to just disengage a bit early as Clay City does rotate. Armor Wolf is stepped up a bit, but I don't think they will look to rotate. Maybe just look to put a ward on that red buff. I don't think they had one.
I will say that hammer is the sole reason for that kill right there. That hammer landing allowed Baba's Pools to catch up with Viz out of his ult and negate all that health he just gained back from his ultimate there.
And as we were talking about that, just the amount of damage a Baba Yaga can do, especially once she gets a couple items online, does have that Warlock stack fully stacked up and looking to finish that coin. She could go into a Kronos route of duty, but I really expect to see a coin coming out of that second item slot. As we see Viz with a restored artifact himself, so he is either going into that Chronos Pen or the route of Tahuti. So what do you expect to see out of that item slot?
I'd gotta go Rod. I think it's too early. Or I mean, I think it's too early for Rod there. You kind of need CRs. And you'd kind of hope to see maybe more lifesteal to go to a Typhon's late. Kind of where your extra penetration would come from. You know what I would typically go like moving the Fae. You get that soul gem, you get a Typhon's, and it adds on to that sacrificial shroud on the late game, and it really bolsters that damage. Really it's a Cronus. Fennec. Look where you need
We see both teams looking for a gank maybe in this mid lane. Well, the King's Duke's looking for a gank in this mid lane, but not able to find it. As we see, Phenoms were down about 2,000 now. It's only about a 1,500 gold lead for the King's Duke. So the Phenoms have brought it back a little bit with those 2 kills, and a little bit closer towards that even mark. As we see the Gold Fury being pressured here. I don't know if the Dukes know this is happening, as we see an engage going on in this middle lane. I think the Phenoms are baiting in the mid lane. They might just lose this fight as Hunbat's ult comes out, but Viz does get taken away immediately. Now Colin is in the middle lane as well. That Gold Fury does go down in favor of the Phenoms if Buggy Dude can get it out, but it looks like he'll just die to Druid's Fruit as well. This might be a mid lane tower for the Dukes as well. Overall, with this mid lane tower falling, I think this is a huge win for the King's Dukes. I think if the Phenoms were able to sneak that one out, just stop fighting and play it off, they might have come out with a decent play, just losing one with Viz, but with Pyromancer falling here as well, a huge play for the King's Dukes. Maybe a bit of a misplay up for Armor and Brownside not to rotate in on the tail end of that fight.
It looks like Armor's going to secure the team one as well over there. Even play after that. We can pull up the gold sheet. I think
It's about a 2,000, about a 1,500.
yeah, it was what 1,500 before.
Yeah.
Goes up, goes back to 1,500.
It's really about. It ends up about evening out to where it was before. Still a lead for the King's Dukes nonetheless, but I think really in terms of pressure, you feel much better for the King's Dukes. They're finding that mid lane tower takes a lot of safety away from Viz, and if you can bait him to maybe pull that, pull his that wave closer towards your tower, if you're the King's Dukes, you can really find a lot more opportunities to gank Viz, as you see a great warding coming out of the Dukes as well, especially on that right hand corner where Drew likes to hide out a bit and maybe look for his engagement. They can really find a decent more amount of picks onto Viz, as I think he already has 2 deaths. It might be 3 actually. Up to this point, really, the Duke's making an emphasis to counter out Viz on this Morgan Le Fay and shut her down early.
Looks like they're gonna call out this Circuit that's on their side. All warded out. As you can see, they can see any chase coming. And this entire reason, if you saw right there that flash of the net worth, I think the whole reason the Phenoms are up as far as they are, there is it's Armor Wolf's keeping them in it, to be honest. Everybody else is at the bottom of the pool, and playing farm there is a fight going on in mid.
Cupid does get his beads forced out by that Fafnir, as we see Clay City marching on the mounted oak tree, but a great Cupid ultimate with Brownside on the backside just to give him a little bit of peel, but he doesn't need it. Huge stun coming out of one more playing that great. I thought he was dead there for sure, especially with that Fafnir rotating in on the backside, but able to get him out of there safely.
Yeah, that's a huge play by Armor. That level lead, not allowing that pressure to really play. Really just keeping up with his net worth. I think he would have been a big.
As we see the Circuit Hunt Bots, looks like the Hunt Bots ultimate does get forced. Drew's Food jumping away, seeming a bit happy, doesn't get his beads forced, so I think that might have been a whiffed ultimate by Omar. Unfortunate for the members of Phenoms. He does have that 20% CDR with that Jotun's Wrath pickup fairly early, so it will come online here in about 90 seconds, I'd say. But that does leave a little bit of a window of opportunity for the King's Dukes to maybe look for a bit of an engagement on this middle lane. And with Viz, actually, interesting enough, with Viz, having 3 deaths on him, as Armor Wolf picks up a solo onto Clay City. Neither of them having
just better.
And getting the beads out of Clay City as well. A huge pickup with the Cupid not having beads as well. Maybe a bit of a misplay by Clay.
Might be pushing his luck here with the Circuit and the Raptors coming onto him right now. He knows they're coming.
He does get blinked on, does not have beads quite yet. Is still holding his Aegis. I think he knows he's dead. He's not going to use it, but a huge ultimate out of armor, but he's not able to find it. But Viz does find Boost Food a bit over the wall as we see the Baba ultimate being used now onto Viz. Viz and Vivakis just kind of trading ults, but Viz pops his Aegis as well just to try to negate some of that damage that the Baba had on top of him.
Yeah,
So
he kind of walked back into it to try and get focused on Baba, which is what we don't do. Baba hit harder than when they. I'm pretty sure that Baba's tick damage is worse than the initial damage from the
Groundside is surrounded by 3 as the Dragon form does come out, so we could see a bit of a re-engagement as the jump stun misses. Does he have the 1 still, but he finds it on top of Viz instead, but looks like the members of the King's Dukes are more interested in those oracles instead of killing either of those other 2 members on the side of the Phenoms. But as I was talking about earlier, I think even though Viz has had 3 deaths, he was 0-3, now he's 1-3-0, and Vaka's being 3-0-2, he's done a great job of actually farming as well. Only about 400 gold being down, not even 400 gold down. So he's done a great job keeping up with Bacchus on this Baba Yaga. As we see the Phenoms pushing out this Oni Fury, and they will find it. Hunbat's ult and Ymir being forced to secure that. Now looking for the disengage off the back end. The Sandman and Samuel leading the charge and blinking in, finding Viz by himself. He is trying to run away, the fear coming out, but now Brown side really low. Clay is able to pick that one up as he tries to maybe find a flank, but gets caught out by a couple members of the King's Dukes. And now we might see the Dukes the force out this T2 tower, maybe the T1 on left-hand side. That Socket is still hovering, knowing that Cupid does have his relics. They might just look for this Pyromancer instead, though. Cupid is getting dove onto by this Hachiman and Socket. Socket jumping over the wall, shot calling a little bit, even though I can't see it. Omolwolf gets away with a little bit of his health, and he doesn't even get his beats forced out. Omolwolf playing amazing this game, just a little escape artist.
I don't know how he didn't die there. Obviously, we missed it because Jeremy's just out with a sliver of his health. He pulled the ult from Chi as well in that. I don't think I think his ult was down for the entire engagement, but you know, 1 ult and he didn't even get his beats pulled. That's the reason he got out.
I'm gonna be honest, I was taking a drink and then I started coughing, so I was like down and out for the count, so I apologize.
It happened.
Patient is key.
Nothing. Scrooge just dashes to safety. Says, no, not today. Shall not be.
I'm sorry, I got a text from work. My apologies, my eyes were taken away from the screen, but I appreciate you taking over there for me. But that Oni does come down. Not really the feel you want to see at this point in the game. Minions kind of get cleared very quickly just because people are still in their laning roles. But we do see a tower being forced out on the side of the King's Dukes, that T1 and the solo lane being taken now. Which will be a pretty good tower, just gets them a little bit of gold, a little bit of XP, closer towards the King's Duke. But also takes a little bit away with that pressure on the solo side, so it takes away an option of if the King's Dukes need a retreat. As we see, yep, they do secure the purple buff as Clay does take that tower as well, so pretty much trading towers there. Clay will get out safely as we see Drew is on the backside. Doesn't find the bubble off of Omar, so unfortunate there as Buggy Dude is jumping in on top of him, but a clean jump over the wall and he'll be safe.
Yeah, maybe gonna see some pressure here towards Fire Giant side as we're gonna start to see these Fire Giant dances. And looks like Armor is going to back and head towards that Fire Giant side. You see the wards up. Both teams are already in preparation. I think this is where the dance begins. 20-minute mark. We're gonna start to see it. Let's see a player dance.
A little bit of grouping out of the Phenoms there too. Maybe looking for a fight, especially with how Buggy is positioning, but the King's Duke's just refusing to fight them, and the Phenom says, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah, Baba doing Baba things there at the top of the leaderboard. Just
Bunch of Baba things.
you know,
Cupid
just
actually.
press
Top
one and
of
two and
terms of backliners, Cupid having more damage. It's really interesting to me just because of how much time he has been in that lane. He has been using it wisely, just getting a bunch of farm, but for the most part, he's just been in that left side, just farming up, clearing minions, getting to 20 as fast as he can, level 19 already. Uh,
yeah.
Tied with Viz and Sandman, so Viz actually doing a great job at farming as well, like I mentioned earlier.
Ooh, he's
Even
gonna
though
overstep.
even though Vacus is 3-0 and 2, but yeah, that Cupid is pushed up a bit, and we see a rotation of the Socket.
Pet does have blink up. It might be used here.
Cupid is forced immediately though, as Armor Wolf does get his bees forced. A good ultimate out of Drew's food using that CC immunity, knows he won't get stunned by the Cupid ult, so won't have to get his relics forced and forcing that relic that Cupid to beats. So with that Gold Fury spawning here, honestly a big advantage for the King's Dukes as they can really find Armor, who's been doing a lot for them in this game early on in this fight.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. They're pulling that beast off of huge. I mean, they does come at the cost of the metal, but I think she has 40% CDR at this point, and then some. I think she actually has 50. No, Winged Blade's not.
Yeah, just
But
40%, but yeah.
yeah, 40% CDR out of the Circuit there with a little bit of tank on the side. Not dying. She's gonna be there to set up her.
Yeah,
her
and
matchup.
honestly, her ultimate is coming up here probably within the next 10 seconds, I'd suppose. And the bees are still down for 100, so this is a great opportunity the King's Dukes are taking to pull this Gold Fury. You'd like to see maybe a Primal, but they'll take whatever objective they can get at this point. Brownside looking to get his way in, as Sandman does get his ult for us. Brownside preemptively ulting, great job of the King's Dukes to lead that one. But as we see Viz being committed onto by Drew and Sandman in this backline, Viz does eventually fall to Drew. As we see Hunbath does find a decent Fear No Evil, but he's all by himself, jumping away after recognizing that. He is super low as the Dragon Transformation's coming out as well. Clay City does pick up the kill onto Omar, finding those long-range autos, and I think the Phenoms will walk out of this fight licking their wounds as the Dukes turn their attention to the Gold Fury.
Yeah, that's just a good fight. I think.
Frenzy being popped, maybe looking to pick Sandman here, but I don't think those two members of Phenoms have enough damage as a good stun coming out of G finding the kill as Clay City onto Brownside. Aegis being forced off Vacus. I don't think he needed Aegis and beads off that Cupid ult. I think he was fairly safe, so I guess a good ultimate by Oma will baiting the relics off of this Baba Yaga, so that will be good news coming towards this next fight, but the King's Dukes finding a good, decent lead as the teams start to probably turn their attention to the right side of this map.
Looking like the Dukes are gonna set up earlier than later. Only favor right now. Oh, never mind. It's away. Cupid was already ticked over to 20 and had that leader's cow for Hunter's. But Clay actually just picked it up as I spoke. So. A little surprised to not see a Shogun on the side. You know, their Cupid being that attack speed, and also I believe Moonbots can kind of use it a little bit to his advantage. But what do you think needs to happen in these next fights for either King's Dukes to either run it down or?
I think really it's on the back of Brown's side. He really needs to find either a separated engagement or in terms of just stepping in early, as he does get split away from his team that's slow coming out from Sandman, but he does run away, does have that winged blade, so he just becomes a speedy boy. But I really think Brown needs to turn his attention from, hey, me going in first, me diving isn't doing a lot, Viz is getting a lot of pressure, a lot of the times he's using damage, and on the backside his Buggy dude does blink in. The Cupid ult comes down onto Clay. Clay gets both of his relics popped immediately as that Baba Yaga turns into her ultimate already. Viz does pop his ult and counter as Drew's being chased out on the top side, as the remainder of the King's Dukes are split here, actually not knowing which target they really want to go on, as Omar finds a great ult. Clay gets picked off immediately, but Omar is fairly low, but he should get out of this engagement. As, I'm sorry, my screen goes down a bit, but Vacus does pick up Ormo in return, and Archie does find the kill on to Brown side as well. I apologize, my screen kind of buffered there a bit, so I did miss how that turnaround did happen, but I'm assuming Vac has found a decent amount of damage. Vac is having a great game for himself, as well as Sandman Samuel.
Yeah, basically he stepped up around the corner and they were grouped up. Smacked a little
As
bit.
Viz
Viz
being caught out a little bit by this Soket ult is up and online, getting that Aegis, but Drew's food finds the kill on to Viz. Omar is leaping in, but Sandman's around the corner. I don't think he knows that, so he should just fall here as well and trying to run away, but here is the Fafnir blinking back in. I think Omar tried to hit him with a quick switcheroo. Maybe his jump was coming back up, but Sandman does find that kill on to Omar there. So good 2 picks by the King's Dukes. They should just turn their attention to the Fire Giant.
Fire Giant should just be pretty free on that side. You know, there's not much to say. I think Dukes was playing extremely well. I think extreme lack of target play. People diving on 1 not get anything out of it, not defending their carries who are getting go back constantly, lacking communication.
A lack of communication. I think a bit of a lack of draft diff, in my opinion. I just think Joe hit it on the head at the beginning of the cast. Omar Wolf, once they use the ultimates, and I know we can call it a Cupid an ult bot, but he is doing top damage right now. They really just aren't that useful, especially that Hun bots. And Viz not having an easy time at all. I think what I was discussing earlier, I think Brown really needs to step back into that more like standard style support role where he is just looking for that peel on the Brown side, or as soon as that dive goes on, maybe try to split the dive away from Viz by using his wall to allow him to feel a bit less pressured. He is 1-5 now. He only been a part of one kill. He was 1-3-0. Now he's 1-5-1 and only has been a part of 2 kills. I know the Phenoms only have 5, but really something you don't want to see out of your mid lane mage. He has found about 12k damage, a little bit behind Armor Wolf in that aspect, but out of this Morgan Le Fay, her potential to do so much damage with all her abilities being just damage abilities outright, not being able to find as much as you think she should be able to is really harming the Phenoms, and I don't think it's at the cost of Viz at all. I think it's just he needs a little bit of extra at appeal to just help in that backline because that dive is so prevalent.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Morgan Le Fay's not get that. No problem. Extremely, just she's a large target for Kettle. Fafnir hammered puts her really out of the fight. Even if Kong lands one, dead Morgan. There's not much you can do.
Yeah. I agree, and especially in that last fight, they did find a really good, clean pick, quick pick onto Clay City, and the fight got a bit spread there, and I was a bit worried for the Kings Dukes in that instance because Drew's was really low, Clay had already been picked, and they were 5 strong, but then when you got to think about it, in the end was, if the Dukes are split, so are the Phenoms, and that ended up costing that fight as we see Sandman blinking in, looking for Viz immediately. Viz already dead in this fight as we see Omar now getting dove onto by that Soket. Soket does end up falling to Buggy Dude, but back just picks up Omar in the backside. Brown side falls to Clay as well. Omar is going to fall to Sandman Samuel, and this might just be the game. It's just Buggy Dude in the 1v4. He's going to have a lot of work he's got to do if he's going to want to see his Titans live to see another day. But as Clay does start to put on damage, Buggy Dude running back to his base now. Titan already at half HP, and this will be game 2. Kings Dukes finding a commanding 2-0 victory over the Phenoms.
Yeah, what a set. I don't think either of those games. I mean, this game obviously ended up at. I think game 1 was extremely close until the end, and this one as well. Right there, just kind of one fight kind of steamrolled onto the rest. Wow, what a set.
A cleaner performance, especially out of that in that game 2 than the game 1. But I agree with you. 2 high quality sets, good plays from both teams. I just don't think the Phenoms draft was quite capable of just keeping up and what it needed to do against this Kings Dukes draft. So I really think a couple of picks or band changes there could really play a huge role as we see Vargas doing a bunch of damage. Clay doing about 12K. I think Clay had a huge first game. Vargas really showing why he is such a highly talented mid laner, doing a bunch of damage. Sandman doing Sandman things, playing the Cthulhu, playing the Zhonghui, really taking it to the Phenoms in that set.
Yeah, I think, like I said, they the key to Phenoms winning this would have been shutting down, the Baba Yaga early, allowing not to kind of free cast. And I mean, as you see there, 5-0 and 8, not even one death on the side of Baba Yaga. I'd call that pretty much able to kind of do her will, get the damage off. I mean, John Kui, his damage is going to be up there. All he has to do is walk into 5 people and press 4, and all of a sudden, wow, man, I did 2k damage in a fight without doing anything. Pop Aegis and walk in there, but
Yeah, as and as you were mentioning in terms of death, I guarantee you, G and Vargas are in the comps. Imagine dying that set, guys. A bit of BM to his other teammates, but as we're looking at the comments section, we'll and Snatty just talking about if we do set MVPs, and I believe we do. And he says he's give his hand to Drew's food in that game, and I would be partially agreeing with him. He did a lot of work. He created a lot of space. He did die, not do as much damage as Vacus or something, but he was really one of the major reasons, especially in both those games. Clay got a free cast in that first game. Bacchus got a free cast in the second game. Drews did a lot of work, created a lot of pressure in this jungle, and really found a way to shut down Omo, in which no team has really found much success in shutting down Omo this season.
I tend to agree with you there. But I'm gonna kind of go to the other side, go to the underappreciated. I think Otg had one hell of a set.
I agree with you. I think one of
I
these two
don't have
Ramos.
last game pulled up. I don't know how many times he died last game, but last game he had some insane emoji ults that really kind of separated the teams and just really gave fights to them last game. I think he played well. He peeled extremely well. The emoji was on point.
Yeah,
I
I
could
agree
name
with you.
I could name 2 or 3 times this game where he hit a hammer that directly led to a kill. One of them being mid lane early that kind of gave a kill to Vacus off the ult because he hit one hammer at the end of his Tix's ult. He planned it. He timed it perfectly right as he was coming out of the CC and he planned died to the Bobble pools. I think Achu had one hell of a set.
I think
So
G had a hell of a set, and I don't want to be a
I think
bit
he takes
biased.
MVP for me. I think he
I
takes MVP for me.
I don't want to be a bit biased because I am good friends with G. I've known him for about 2 years at this point. We've been playing Smite. We're good buddies and stuff, and I'll probably end up talking to him after this set regardless. But I agree with you. I think one of these two Romas really deserve the amount of space and pressure they created. And I know it looks fancy. It's easy to look at big numbers to be like, man, Clay did 40K. Man, Vacus really carried the load in terms of damage. I know Sandman did a lot of damage in that team fight as well. But I think it was just the amount of space that RG created, that Ben created, I'm sorry, not Ben, but Drew's food created in that game too, especially. But also agreeing with you, those Yomojo walls. I could name you a huge ultimate where he found an ult onto Armor Wolf and Brownside, just immediately getting them both killed, being trapped in that Yemoja ult for so long that they just wrecked the team fight afterwards. So I agree with you. Either RG or Ben. I think. Oh, well, sorry, not Ben. RG or Drew. I think we're a bit split here, but I'll let you give it to RG so I can give it to Drew.
Yeah, I think that works out. Drew's Food said he will get in here. Join any chat, General 1, General 2. I'll drag you on into here as long as you join up and we can get an interview from the winners there. Oh, coaching in progress. Why would he joins the one now where did he go? Oh, he switched to General. Moved. Why can't I
He's
see
hitting
it?
you with a.
There we go. Alrighty. You
Hello.
wanna lead this off, Justin? You think?
Alrighty, well,
This is
well,
your
Drew,
picked MVP.
you are my MVP for the set. I appreciate everything you do, especially in a meta where junglers tend to struggle and a lot of junglers complain about how weak their role is right now. You found a lot of success, found a lot of pressure, created a lot of pressure, really found a way to shut down Omar, who's had been top of the class so far, alongside of you in the jungle role. And I think you proved me wrong. I know the other day I think I would have put Omar slightly ahead of you, and I think you just changed my mind and proved me wrong there. So how did it feel knowing that the amount of pressure and the amount of space you created and shutting down Omar in this set felt?
Um, first I think Omar kind of got team diffed. I still think Omar might be probably better than me, but regardless, you know, my team is just the goats. Like Sam is just so handsome, and so is Clay, and they all just carried me, and they make it to where I can play the game in a terrible role and get in there and try my best to ent,
To
but
run
like
it down.
tactically. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, tactical feeding, I think that's what they call it. But also, I got a second question here. In terms of that game one, especially in terms of team drafting, I think really both sets were kind of exclamation pointed on the draft. I think that's why the Phenoms did tend to struggle in this set. I thought you guys' two drafts were absolutely fantastic, especially that game one draft. How do you feel that these drafts played a factor into this set win?
Well, okay, so game one, we're kind of getting our heads bashed in like early game, right? But we knew that like late game, double Cthulhu, and like Nike, we had like infinite dive, right? So we knew that our comp was better than the late game, even though we technically lost the last team fight. But that was
Winion's diff, baby.
yeah. We knew that the minions were like there, so we knew that if we died the way we did, that we still had a chance to win the whole game, right? But
Definitely.
yeah, we knew that the double like Cthulhu ult was too OP. We just survived to get like to a somewhat even late game that we'd probably win as long as we didn't troll.
Alrighty. And then this is my third and final question. I know Sandman will yell at me and take me off his number one mid tier list if I don't ask. How handsome is Sandman Samuel?
Uh, like words can't describe. He's such a beautiful human being, inside and
Abs-
out.
Absolutely sexy is the answer
Mm-hmm.
then. So
Mm-hmm.
Ski, going to you.
Um,
Agreed.
not a lot of questions on the wayside of me. I mean, you covered just about most of it, but going into that game too, I mean, you guys kind of shifted your draft a complete 180 from that hard extreme dive comp with a double Cthulhu ult and just uber peel to kind of playing off the Circuit setup with the Fafnir and I mean, you did you guys like plan on going into that, or did you did you just kind of roll with the draft as it went and played off? Did you
We
have
kind of just rolled
did
with
you have an
it.
idea where it happened?
No, I think Sam was saying that Zonkli, smacks, and we're like, we trust Sam. He's our best player, and he's handsome, And then we were just playing the game, and their positioning, you know, gave us opportunities to murder them, and so we did, you know.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
yeah,
Oh, I really don't have that many questions. My brain's tired.
understandable.
Well, I'll wrap this up then. Congratulations on your 2-0 victory. I think this firmly places you guys as number one so far in the seedings, and that's going to play a big impact and give you guys a lot of options in terms of who you decide you want to play if you can hold that coming closer to the playoffs, which I think you guys should be more than capable of doing.
Yeah, I hope so. Still a few good teams we have to play, but I
All
believe in our squad.
Especially, definitely, I think your squad is amazing. And before you go here, any shout outs, anybody you want to thank, anybody you want to call sexy? That's your time to do it now.
My whole team, my captain, my backups, my girlfriend, the casters, the mods, the phenoms. Yeah, that's all. We're all
Well,
sexy. That's what I mean. I was listing out all these sexy people.
all the sexy people. Well, we
Yes, yes.
appreciate everyone who is sexy in this league and everyone who gets things done for this league and keep it rolling. So I'll go ahead and let you go. Enjoy the win and go celebrate with your team.
Thank you so much. I love you guys. Be safe.
Be safe to yourself.
All right.
Oh,
Well, yeah, we have it there, folks. Thank you all who are still watching. To anyone who's VOD reviewing right now, hi, hello. Hope you're having a great day. And GG's all around. It's been a great game to cast, a great set all around. I hope it lived up to everyone's expectations. And goodbye and good night.